The second I tuned into your energy today, the first thing that came through wasn't subtle at all. It was loud, clear, almost blunt. Spirit showed me someone who spent a long time acting untouchable, like nothing could ever catch up to them. Someone who played the role perfectly, calm, reasonable, soft-spoken, always the innocent one. The kind of person who made sure everyone believed they were the misunderstood victim, the emotionally mature one, the person who was somehow always above the chaos. And for a while, people bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. They protected that image like it was their lifeline. Every story they told, every reaction they had, every version of events they shared was carefully crafted to keep that mask in place. But here's the thing, that whole act, it's starting to fall apart, big time. And it's not because you exposed them. It's not because you defended yourself. It's because people around them finally started paying attention. What's shifting now feels almost unreal, like the air suddenly changed. Spirit keeps saying, the curtain didn't just move, it got ripped down. People are noticing the contradictions. They're clocking how this person's words never really matched their actions, how their so-called values only showed up when it benefited them, how their principles had loopholes, how every time accountability got close, they dipped, deflected, or blamed someone else. And the wildest part, every lie they ever told about you is boomeranging straight back to them. Stuff they accused you of, people are now seeing them do. The confusion they projected onto you, that's now clearly theirs. Even the people who used to defend them are starting to pull back, whispering to each other like, something ain't right. They're asking questions now, real ones. Like, what else did this person hide? What else did they twist? What part of the story was conveniently left out? Spirit shows me one moment, just one, where someone in their circle finally spoke up. Nothing dramatic, just honest. Someone said out loud what everyone else had been thinking quietly. That moment, it triggered a chain reaction, because once one person connects the dots, everyone else starts replaying memories they ignored before. And now the truth is moving way faster than this person can control. Their storyline is collapsing. Their confidence is shaky. The mask they wore so effortlessly is slipping in front of the exact people they wanted to impress. And the energy around it? Heavy, unavoidable. Like karma didn't knock. It kicked the door in. The same person who tried to paint you as emotional, unstable, dramatic, or confused is now being seen as the one who never knew what they wanted, the one who ran when things got real, the one who blamed others instead of owning their choices, the one who disappeared the moment responsibility showed up. And Spirit is clear. This is just the beginning, because once the illusion cracks, it never goes back together the same way. But wait, the reason this exposure is happening now, and the role your silence played in it, that's where this gets even deeper. As I sink deeper into this energy, one thing becomes crystal clear. The truth didn't come out by accident. This wasn't gossip. This wasn't someone being messy. This wasn't a slip-up. Spirit says the universe straight up decided this story had dragged on long enough. Balance had to be restored. For a long time, this person relied on confusion to stay in control. They counted on people not asking the right questions. They leaned on the fact that you stayed quiet, that you stayed graceful, that you didn't feel the need to clap back, over-explain, or defend yourself every 5 minutes. Your silence made their version easier to sell, or at least they thought so. But something changed when people stopped listening to the performance and started watching the patterns. Timelines didn't add up. Reactions didn't match the story. Excuses sounded rehearsed. Emotions felt forced. And suddenly, people who once believed everything without question started squinting a little harder. Spirit keeps showing me a moment where someone paused mid-conversation and thought, hold up, that doesn't make sense. It was small, subtle, but this time, it stuck. The energy was different. The timing was perfect. And once that seed of doubt was planted, it spread fast. One person noticed an inconsistency. Another remembered a moment they brushed off before. Someone else realized they'd seen the same behavior repeat. And just like that, supporters turned into observers. Observers turned into mirrors. And those mirrors started reflecting this person's behavior back to them in a way they couldn't dodge anymore. What's powerful here is that this exposure isn't loud. There's no screaming, no chaos, no public call-out. It's quiet, factual, heavy. The kind of truth that doesn't need to raise its voice because it already carries weight. Spirit says this is happening because your intentions were clean. You didn't force clarity. You didn't chase validation. You didn't try to win people over. You let your energy speak for itself. And now people are comparing, not by words, but by vibration. They're noticing who stayed consistent and who unraveled the second accountability showed up. The person who tried to make you look uncertain is now being seen as deeply undecided. The one who claimed emotional maturity is being exposed as emotionally avoidant. The one who acted so put together is now cracking under pressure. They never expected people to notice how different they were behind closed doors. They assumed charm would cover everything. But authenticity has a frequency you can't fake. And the contrast between your grounded energy and their performance is loud now. People aren't engaging the same way anymore. They're distancing themselves. Not for drama, but because their intuition finally woke up. And once intuition turns on, there's no going back to sleep. And just when you think the exposure is complete, Spirit shows me a single conversation that's about to change everything. Spirit keeps circling back to one defining moment, a conversation that seems casual on the surface, but carries serious weight. Someone asks this person about a story they've told before. Same narrative, same explanation, but this time, they hesitate. Just for a second. That pause is everything. Their tone shifts. Their explanation changes slightly. They add details they didn't mention before. They dodge where they used to flow. And that tiny disruption is enough to make everyone in the room feel it. Something's off. Because when someone is telling the truth, there's steadiness. When someone is fabricating, the smallest question feels like a threat. No one was trying to expose them. No one was digging. Someone just wanted clarity. But the defensive energy, the tension, the scattered response, it said more than words ever could. From there, everything starts unraveling. People replay past interactions. They remember how this person always positioned themselves as the wounded one, how they exaggerated issues, how they criticized you quietly, how your energy never matched the version being sold. Spirit says their biggest mistake was underestimating the intuition of the people around them. They assumed nobody would question them. They thought they could perform innocence forever, but intuition always catches up. Now there's discomfort around them. Conversations feel awkward. People respond differently. And this person feels it. That quiet panic that sets in when you realize you've lost control of a narrative you depended on. They're not scared because they feel guilty. They're scared because they feel exposed. The universe is showing me them sitting alone, replaying conversations, feeling the shift, knowing something has changed, but not knowing how to fix it. The distractions don't work anymore. The excuses don't land. And the truth they avoided for so long keeps tapping them on the shoulder at night. Spirit says this is divine justice, not punishment, but balance. People are finally seeing that you weren't dramatic. You were intuitive. You weren't unstable. You were responding to inconsistency. You weren't too much. You were just too real for someone who was emotionally unprepared. The irony is heavy. The person who acted like they had it all together is now exposed as someone ruled by fear, ego over accountability, avoidance over honesty, performance over integrity. And this story, it's still unfolding. The biggest reveal hasn't even landed yet, because when the universe starts correcting a narrative, it doesn't stop halfway. And what's coming next? That's the part nobody is ready for. There was a message they ignored, a conversation they shut down way too fast, a feeling they brushed off like it was nothing. And now, slowly but painfully, they're realizing every one of those moments carried a truth they weren't ready to face. Back then, they thought walking away meant self-protection. They told themselves it was strength, boundaries, logic. But Spirit says the truth is way simpler. They weren't protecting themselves at all. They were running. They ran from the one person who reflected their potential back to them. The one who didn't just see who they were, but who they could be. And that hit a nerve they weren't prepared to deal with. What's wild is the silence they once used as a shield. It's not working anymore. That silence is closing in on them, because silence doesn't hide truth forever. Eventually, it forces reflection. Spirit says life is now pushing them to look in the mirror without the filters, without the stories, without the excuses. And they feel it. The people around them are holding them accountable without even trying. Every question feels loaded. Every casual conversation feels like a pop quiz they didn't study for. Even the smallest shift in someone's tone feels like exposure. They can tell something's changed. The same people who used to believe them without hesitation are now stepping back, reassessing, quietly connecting dots. And that shift, it's isolating them more than they ever expected. But here's the twist. That isolation is on purpose. Spirit says this person never gave themselves space to actually hear their own inner voice. They drowned it out with noise, distractions, validation, constant explanations. Now the universe has turned the volume down on everything else so they can't avoid it anymore. And that inner voice, it's finally whispering the truth. They acted out of fear, not clarity. They cared way more than they admitted. And they walked away from someone who saw them in a way nobody else ever has. You didn't offer comfort. You offered growth. You didn't activate their safe zone. You activated their soul contract. And that scared them. This realization hurts because it dismantles every excuse they leaned on. They can't blame timing anymore. They can't blame circumstances. They can't pin it on misunderstandings or emotional differences. They're being forced to look at patterns, their own. And yeah, that stings. They're starting to see that the version of you they painted was really just a projection of their unresolved stuff. The confusion, the inconsistency, the emotional avoidance. It was never yours. Spirit says this moment isn't about humiliation. It's about transformation. This isn't punishment. It's awakening. Old patterns are cracking because they were never sustainable to begin with. And the connection they tried to bury, it's not gone. Soul connections don't disappear just because someone avoids them. They get louder in the quiet. Memories are coming back now. Your voice, your presence, the way you looked at them with clarity they didn't think they deserved. Every memory pulls them closer to the truth they tried so hard to dodge. But what really happens when denial stops working and the truth starts pressing harder than fear? That's where this story flips. There's a different kind of silence around them now. Not peace, not indifference, It feels like the pressure in the air right before a storm breaks. On the outside, they're moving through life like everything's normal. But inside, it's chaos. Spirit shows their mind like a cracked mirror, fragments of truth reflecting back at them from angles they've never seen before. They keep replaying conversations, little moments they didn't think mattered at the time. A pause in someone's response, a look that lingered too long, a shift from trust to skepticism. And that's terrifying for them, because it means the control they once had over perception is slipping. Here's the part that cuts the deepest. People aren't reacting to one situation anymore. They're reacting to patterns, long-standing ones. The disappearing when things got emotionally heavy. The rationalizing instead of owning impact. The avoidance masked as logic. The way they vanished when depth showed up. If it was just one event, they could argue it, spin it, defend it. But patterns don't lie, and they can feel others quietly noticing what they ignored for years. Spirit says they're realizing their story collapsed because it was built on fear, not truth. They blamed timing, circumstances, intensity, anything but their own fear of intimacy. They were terrified of being seen fully, terrified of someone who could read them without words, terrified of the version of themselves that real connection would demand. So they created distance, confusion, clean-sounding explanations that made them feel safer. But now even their own mind isn't buying it anymore. Spirit shows them alone, in their car, in bed, midday, when a memory of you hits hard, not nostalgic, not random, sharp, emotional. Something you said, a look you gave, a moment when your honesty cracked their walls. They see it differently now. You weren't challenging them. You were inviting growth. You weren't overwhelming. You were holding truth. You weren't confusing. You were exposing what they avoided. That awareness is breaking down their defenses slowly but steadily. And regret is setting in. Not dramatic, not loud. The quiet kind that lingers. They're realizing how much they projected onto you. They called you intense when you wanted clarity, unpredictable when you were reacting to mixed signals, too much when you were simply real. Spirit says the universe isn't crushing them. It's waking them up. And waking up after years of avoidance feels brutal. They're questioning everything now. What they felt, why they ran, why they worked so hard to convince themselves they didn't care. And the truth they keep circling back to scares them the most. They cared deeply. They felt deeply. And that's exactly why they left. But the real breaking point isn't regret. It's what happens when someone finally sees through them completely. Spirit keeps highlighting one energy in their circle. Someone intuitive, maybe younger, maybe just more emotionally aware. This person doesn't buy the surface level explanations. They ask direct questions. They point out patterns. They notice avoidance. And every time they do, this individual feels exposed. Because once one person sees through the facade, the whole thing starts wobbling. They're now facing something they've avoided their entire life. Being truly seen. Not the polished version. Not the projected image. The real one. The one afraid of closeness. The one who shuts down when emotions get intense. The one who never learned how to stay. And here's the irony. Avoiding vulnerability didn't make them strong. It made them disconnected, misaligned, lonely. It cost them people who genuinely cared. Spirit shows longing rising now, longing for the stability you brought, the depth, the conversations that challenged them. They tried to replace it with distractions, work, business, detachment, but nothing sticks. Everything feels shallow. Even worse, people around them are speaking about you differently now, with respect, admiration, Someone mentions your emotional intelligence. Someone notices your consistency. Someone points out how grounded you are. That messes with them because it shatters the story they told themselves. They're reaching a point where they can't repeat the same narrative with confidence anymore. Their voice falters. The logic feels hollow. Their heart won't cooperate with the lie. Spirit says this is multi-layered awakening. They're seeing how their behavior affected you, themselves, and how others see them now. They're realizing withdrawal didn't make them grounded. It exposed their fear. Their soul contract with you is activating again, not romantically, but spiritually. The lessons they avoided are back, and the universe won't let them move forward without acknowledging them. They're feeling guilt now, not for what they told others, but for what they told themselves, pretending they didn't care, choosing silence over honesty, walking away when staying would have changed everything. And there's a moment approaching, a big one, a moment of truth where excuses won't work, denial won't stick, and accountability shows up loud and clear. Spirit says this is where everything shifts in your favor, not because you chased, not because you proved anything, but because your truth stayed solid while theirs cracked. Because when the universe steps in, denial collapses, and the next chapter, that's where everything changes.